Hey y'all, today is Thursday, February 10th, and we are going over solving two-step inequalities. So I first want to bring your attention to this box right here. I've highlighted some important information. First of all, to solve two-step inequalities, you follow the same steps as solving two-step equations. So remember, we're still using those inverse operations. You have to use those inverse operations to undo something so that you can simplify your equation and get the variable by itself. But don't forget that if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you must flip your inequality symbol. We've been doing that when we've been solving one-step inequalities. So now that we're adding a second step, let's not forget that if you multiply or divide by a negative, you still have to flip your inequality symbol. So now that we've gone over that, let's get started with some examples. We're jumping right in to number 1. We have 3n plus 3 is greater than or equal to 30. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw a line down my inequality symbol. That just helps me see that I have two sides, and whatever I do on one side, I must do on the other. Now remember, our objective is to get this in by itself, and we want to work our way far away from the variable, in close towards the variable. So which 3 is farther away? Is this 3 farther away, or is this 3 farther away? If you said this second 3 is farther away, you're correct. So how do I undo a plus 3? Well, I subtract 3. So I'm going to do that on both sides. So now that I've done that, on the side with the n, those 3's will cancel out, and I can bring down 3n. Now, there was no reason for my sign to change because I didn't multiply or divide by a negative, so my sign is still greater than or equal to. Now, 30 minus 3 is 27. Now, I'm still trying to get this in by itself, and it's connected to that 3 through multiplication. So I undo that with division. So I'm dividing by 3 on both sides. Does my sign need to flip? No, it does not need to flip because I'm dividing by a positive 3, so it's going to stay greater than or equal to. On the side with the n, my 3's cancel out. N comes down, it's by itself. 27 divided by 3 on the other side is 9. So n is greater than or equal to 9 is my solution. And now I'm ready to graph that. So I know at 9 I need a closed circle. So I've already numbered my number line. So I've got 9 kind of there in the middle. I'm going to place my circle at 9, and I'm going to fill it in. That's not a very good circle, is it? Let's try that again. There we go. And I'm going to fill it in because it's a closed circle. It's part of the solution, and n is greater than or equal to 9. That means I need to shade the numbers that are bigger. So I'm shading towards 12, and I include that arrow. Let's move on now to number 2. 17 is less than or equal to negative 2m minus 3. So the first thing I'm going to do, draw a line through my inequality symbol. Now my objective is to get this m right here by itself. Do I want to undo this negative 2 or this negative 3 first? Keep in mind, I want to start farther away from my variable and work my way in close towards my variable. So which one's farther away? If you said this negative 3 is farther away, you're correct. So how do I undo a negative 3? Well, I add 3. So I'm adding 3 on both sides of my inequality symbol. Now on the side with the variable, my 3's will cancel out, and I can bring down negative 2m. Now because we added 3, there was no need for my sign to change. It's still less than or equal to. On the other side, 17 plus 3 is 20. Now I'm trying to get this m by itself, and it's attached to negative 2 through multiplication. So I undo that by dividing by negative 2 on both sides. Now keep in mind, I'm dividing by negative 2. What happens to my symbol? It has to flip. So instead of it being less than or equal to, it's now greater than or equal to. On the side with my m, my negative 2's cancel out. M comes down, it's by itself. On the other side, 20 divided by negative 2 is going to be negative 10. Now negative 10 is greater than or equal to m is a perfectly acceptable answer. However, I could also write it with m on this side and negative 10 on this side. Keep in mind, the pointy side is with my m, so it needs to stay that way. So I actually need to flip my symbol. So m is less than or equal to negative 10. Sorry about that alarm, y'all. Okay, now I'm ready to graph it. Do keep in mind,
Joshua Dillon, last call for you to please report to carpool. Joshua Dillon.
okay, do keep in mind that these are equivalent answers. So my graph will be the same no matter which answer you have. Okay, so I need to put a closed circle at -10. So I've already labeled my number line. I've got a circle at -10. I'm going to fill it in because it's part of my solution. And I need to shade, and m is less than that. So I want all the numbers that are smaller. So I'm shading towards -13, and I include my arrow. Okay, moving on to number 3. I'm going to first draw a line down my inequality symbol. And I'm trying to get this y right here by itself. So what do I have to undo first? The -5 or the -2? We want to start away from our variable, farther away from the variable, and work our way in close towards it. So I want to undo this -5 first. Well, how do I undo a -5? I add 5. So I'm adding 5 on both sides of my inequality symbol. On the side with the y, my 5's cancel out, and I can bring down -2y. On the other side, I've got -19 plus 5. When I put that in my calculator, I get -14. But let's talk about our symbol. Was there a need for it to change when we added 5? Nope, it stays the same. So -14 is less than -2y. Now, how is this -2 connected to y? It's connected through multiplication. So I undo that by dividing. So I'm dividing by -2 on both sides. Dividing by -2, what has to happen? The sign flips. So instead of it being less than, it's now greater than. Okay, on the side with the y, my -2's cancel out. Y comes down, it's by itself. On the other side, -14 divided by -2 is +7. So 7 is greater than y is my solution. Now I can write it so that y is over here and 7 is over here. Keep in mind, I want the pointy side with the y. So I do need to flip my sign, so y is less than 7 is also an acceptable answer. Now these are both equivalent answers. My graph for both of them will be the same. So let's graph. So I've already kind of labeled my numbers here, 4 through 10. At 7, I need a circle. What kind of circle do I need? Oops, still not a good circle. What kind of circle do I need? I need an open circle. So I'm going to leave it just like that. And y is less than that. So I want to shade all the numbers that are smaller. So I'm shading towards 4. And I'm going to include that arrow. Okay, moving on to number 4. The first thing I'm going to do is draw a line through my inequality symbol. And my goal is to get this x right here by itself. So I want to work my way away from the x, in close towards the x. So do I need to undo -8 first or this +7? If you said this +7, you're right. How do I undo a +7? I subtract 7. So I'm subtracting 7 on both sides. Now on the side with the x, my 7's cancel out, and I'm left with -8x. Now there's no reason for my sign to change, so it's going to stay less than. And on the other side, 15 minus 7 is 8. Now to get that x by itself, I'm going to divide by -8 on both sides. I'm dividing by -8. What has to happen? The sign has to flip. So now it's going to be greater than. On the side with the x, my -8's cancel out. X comes down, it's by itself. On the other side, 8 divided by -8 is -1. So x is greater than -1 is our solution. Now I just need to graph that. So I've already labeled my number line. At -1, I need an open circle. So there I've got an open circle, and I shade all the numbers that are bigger. So I'm shading towards +3, and I'm going to go beyond and include that arrow. Okay, number 5. C divided by 5 plus 6 is less than 2. I'm going to draw a line through my inequality symbol. And what do I have to undo first? Do I need to undo divided by 5 or plus 6? Remember, we start farther away from the variable and work our way in close towards it. So which one is farther away? If you said plus 6, you're right. So how do I undo plus 6? Well, I subtract 6. So I'm subtracting 6 on both sides. Now on the side with the variable, my 6's will cancel out, and I can bring down c divided by -5. On the other side, I've got 2 minus 6, and 2 minus 6 is -4. Okay, now there was no reason when I subtracted 6 for my sign to change, so it's still less than. Now, how is c connected to -5? It's connected through division, so how do I undo that? Through multiplication. So I'm multiplying by -5 on both sides. Listen to that, multiplying by -5. What has to happen? The sign has to flip. So instead of it being less than, it's now greater than. On the side with the c, my -5's cancel out. C comes down, it's by itself. On the other side, -4 times -5 is +20. So C is greater than 20 is our solution. So at 20, what kind of circle do I need? I need an open circle. Okay, what numbers am I going to shade? All the numbers that are bigger. So towards 23 and beyond. So I'm going to include that arrow. Okay, number 6. A plus 1, all divided by 4, is less than or equal to 4. So I'm going to draw my line down my inequality sign. Now, I have to think about what I have on the top as a group. It's connected, and that whole thing is being divided by 4. So, is the 1 or the 4 farther away from the A? If you said the 4, you're correct. So we're going to first undo dividing by 4. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that fraction first. So to undo dividing by 4, I need to multiply by 4. So I'm multiplying by 4 on both sides. Okay, now on the side with the A, my 4's cancel out, and I'm left with what's on top? A plus 1. On the other side, 4 times 4 is 16. But what is going on with my inequality symbol? Did it need to flip? No, I multiplied by a +4, so it stays the same, less than or equal to. Now to get that A by itself, how do I undo adding 1? Well, I subtract 1. So I subtract 1 on both sides. On the side with the A, my 1's cancel out. A is by itself. On the other side, 16 minus 1 is 15. And did my sign need to change that time? No, I just subtracted. So my sign doesn't change for subtraction, so it stays less than or equal to. A is less than or equal to 15 is my solution. So now I'm ready to graph that. I've already got my numbers on my number line. At 15, I'm going to place my circle. It needs to be a closed circle, so I'm going to fill it in. And now I need to shade. And remember, it's A is less than or equal to 15, so I want to shade all the numbers that are smaller. So I'm shading towards 12 and beyond, so I'm going to include that arrow. Okay, moving on to page 7. So it's still more of the same stuff. So number 7, I've got -y minus 2 is greater than or equal to -13. So I've drawn a line through my inequality symbol. This helps me see that I've got two sides, and whatever I do on one side, I must do on the other. Now, my goal is to get this y right here by itself. What do I need to do first? Well, I need to undo this -2. How do I undo that? I add 2. So I'm adding 2 on both sides. Now on the side with the y, my 2's will cancel out, and I can bring down -y, and it's by itself. On the other side, -13 plus 2 is going to be -11. Now, did my sign need to change? No. For adding, it doesn't change. So it's still greater than or equal to. Now, on the other side, or sorry, I've already done the other side. We've got -y is greater than or equal to -11. Now, this y right here is not by itself. What's in front of it? A -1. And how is that -1 attached? Through multiplication. So I've got to undo that. So I'm dividing by -1 on both sides. Dividing by -1, what happens? The sign flips. So it's going to become less than or equal to. On the side with the y, my -1's cancel out. Y is by itself. On the other side, -11 divided by -1 is +11. So y is less than or equal to 11 is my answer. So So now I'm ready to graph it, and I've already labeled my number line. So at 11, I'm going to place a closed circle. So I'm going to draw my circle and fill it in, and y is less than or equal to 11. So I want to shade the numbers that are smaller. So I'm shading towards 8 and beyond, so I'm including that arrow. Now number 8, I'm going to draw my line through my inequality symbol, and I'm trying to get this x right here by itself. So do I need to undo this divided by 2 or this minus 2 first? Which one is farther away from my x? If you said minus 2 is, you're correct. So I'm going to undo minus 2. How do I undo that? I add 2. So I'm adding 2 on both sides. Now on the side with the x, those 2's cancel out, and I can bring down that fraction x divided by 2. On the other side, 6 plus 2 is 8. And now let's talk about our sign. Did adding 2 make me change it? No, it needs to stay the same. So 8 is less than x divided by 2. Now, I need to get that x by itself, and it's being divided by 2. So how do I get it by itself? Well, I multiply by 2. And I'm going to do that on both sides. Now on the side with the x, my 2's cancel out, and x is by itself. On the other side, 2 times 8 is 16. Now, what kind of 2 did we multiply by? A positive 2. So does my sign change? Nope, my sign does not change. It's still less than. So my answer is 16 is less than x. How can I write that though so that x is over here and 16 is over here? Notice the open side is next to the x. So I need to keep the open side next to the x so my sign flips. X is greater than 16 is my solution. So either of these answers are correct. They are equivalent, and the graph will be the same for both of them. So let's graph it. I've already labeled my number line, and at 16, I need to place my circle. What kind of circle should it be? It should be an open circle. And I want to shade all the numbers that are bigger because x is greater than 16. So I'm shading towards 19 and beyond, so I'm going to include that arrow. Okay, moving on to number 9. I've got -3 is greater than 2k plus 5. I'm going to start with my line down my inequality symbol. And my goal, remember, is to get that k right there by itself. So what do I need to undo first? This 2 or this plus 5? Start away from the variable and work your way in close towards it. So I need to undo plus 5 first. How do I undo adding 5? Well, I subtract 5. And I do that on both sides. Now on the side with the variable, my 5's will cancel out and I can bring down 2k. On the other side, I've got -3 minus 5, which is -8. Now, did subtracting 5 make me change my sign? No. So my sign is going to stay the same, greater than. So now I've got to get that k by itself. Well, how do I get that k by itself? I divide by 2, and I do that on both sides. Okay, I'm dividing by 2. Does my sign need to change? No, because I'm not dividing by a negative, so it's still going to be greater than. On the side with the k, my 2's will cancel out. K comes down, it's by itself. On the other side, -8 divided by 2 is -4. So -4 is greater than k is my solution. Now, can I write it so that I have k over here and -4 over here? Yes, I just need to be careful with my sign. So notice the pointy side is with my k, so I need to keep it that way. That means my sign flips. K is less than -4. These are both equivalent and acceptable answers. The graph will be the same for both of them. So how do I graph it? Well, I've already labeled my number line. At -4, I'm going to place my circle. Okay? And now k is less than that. So I want to shade in the direction of the smaller numbers. So I'm shading towards -7 and beyond. So I'm going to include that arrow. Okay, moving on to number 10. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw my line through my inequality symbol. And my goal, remember, is to get this c right here by itself. So what do I need to undo first? Do I need to undo this -3/4 or this +1? Which one is farther away from my c? Well, this +1. So I'm going to undo +1. How do I undo adding 1? By subtracting 1. So So I'm subtracting 1 on both sides. Now on the side with the variable, my 1's cancel out and I can bring down negative 3/4 c. Now on the other side, negative 11 minus 1 is negative 12. Now did subtracting 1 make me change my sign? No, it did not, so it stays greater than. So now I have c attached to negative 3/4, a fraction, through multiplication. So how can I undo that? Well, multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by negative 4/3. And I'm going to do that on both sides. Multiply by negative 4/3. Okay, so let's talk about the side with the variable. I've got 4 and 4 diagonal from each other. Those will cancel out. What about the 3 and 3? They're diagonal from each other too. So they'll also cancel out. So if the 4's cancel out and the 3's cancel out, and I have a negative times a negative, that becomes a positive. That really just leaves me with c by itself. Okay, on the other side, I'm going to write it so that I have two fractions. So my negative 12 is now going to be negative 12/1. Now, does anything reduce? Well, when I look this way, 4 and 1, that doesn't reduce. But what about this way? 3 and 12. Does 3 go into 12? Yeah, it does. So the 3 is going to become a 1, and 3 goes into 12 4 times, right? Okay, so now that my denominators are both 1, I know my answer is a whole number, so I can ignore the denominators. So now I'm going to multiply my numerators together. Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. Okay, but now let's talk about our sign, because we multiplied by a negative number. So when we multiply by a negative number, what happens? The sign flips. So instead of it being greater than or equal to, it's now less than or equal to. 16 is less than or equal to C is our answer. Can I write it though, so that I have C over here and 16 over here? Yeah, I sure can, but be careful with your sign. Notice the open side is with the C. So that means I need to flip it and keep the open side with the C. C is greater than 16 is also an acceptable answer. So now that we have two answers, they're equivalent answers, so the graph will be the same. Let's graph it. I've already labeled my number line. So at 16, I'm going to place my open circle. And which direction do I shade? Well, C is bigger than 16, so I want to shade the numbers that are bigger. So I'm shading towards 19 and beyond, so I include that arrow. Okay. Now, solutions to inequalities. It says solve each inequality, then check each number that is a solution. So let's first start with number 11. So I'm solving these the exact same way. So my goal is to get this m by itself. What do I need to undo first? That minus 2, it's farther away. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So on the side with the m, my 2's cancel out and I can bring down 4m. On the other side, I have 30 plus 2, which is 32. Now, did adding 2 make me change my sign? No, so the sign is still less than or equal to. Now, to get that m by itself, I need to divide by 4 on both sides. Dividing by 4, that's dividing by a positive number. Does my sign change? No, it's still going to be less than or equal to. So on the side with the m, my 4's cancel out and m comes down. It's by itself. On the other side, 32 divided by 4 is 8. So m is less than or equal to 8. So now let's look at our options over here. What are solutions? Well, 8 is a solution because it's m is less than or equal to 8, right? Well, what are the numbers that are smaller than 8? 7 and 6. So those three are solutions. 9 and 10 are not solutions because they are numbers that are bigger than 8. Okay, moving on to number 12. So we have 4 minus 4n is less than or equal to 16. So what do I need to undo first? Do I need to undo this 4 or this negative 4? If you said undo the positive 4 first, you're correct. It's farther away from the end. So how do I undo a positive 4? I subtract 4. So I'm subtracting 4 on both sides. So on the side with the variable, these 4's will cancel out, and I can bring down negative 4n. On the other side, 16 minus 4 is 12. Now subtracting 4, does that make me flip my sign? Nope. So it stays the same, less than or equal to. Now on the other side, next step, for our next step, we've got negative 4 attached to n. How is it attached? It's attached through multiplication. So I undo that with division. So I'm dividing by negative 4 on both sides. Dividing by a negative 4. What has to happen? If you said the sign flips, you're correct. So now on the side with the n, my negative 4's cancel out. N comes down, it's by itself. On the other side, 12 divided by negative 4 is negative 3. So n is greater than or equal to negative 3. So now we need to decide what are the solutions. So this means that n could be bigger than negative 3, or it could be exactly negative 3. So negative 3 is obviously a solution. Now negative 2 is bigger, it's closer to 0, so it's a bigger number, so that's also a solution. Those are the only two that are solutions to this one. The rest are smaller than negative 3. Okay, number 13. I'm going to draw my line. I'm trying to get this a right here by itself. So do I need to undo this negative 2 or the negative 2 that's right next to the a? I need to undo this first negative 2. So how do I undo subtracting 2? Well, I add 2. So I'm adding 2 to both sides. Now on the side with the a, those 2's will cancel out and I can bring down negative 2a. On the other side, 8 plus 2 is 10. Now, adding 2, does that mean my sign changes? Nope, it stays the same. Now I need to get that a by itself, and it's attached to negative 2 through multiplication. So how do I undo that? Well, I divide by negative 2. And I do that on both sides. So on the side with the a, my negative 2's cancel out, and a is by itself. On the other side, 10 divided by negative 2 is negative 5. But keep in mind, in this step right here, we divided by a negative 2. So what happens to my sign? It flips. So negative 5 is greater than a is a solution. Now, can I write it so that I have a over here and negative 5 over here? Yes, I just have to be careful with my sign. Notice the pointy side is with the a. So I actually need to flip it. So a is less than negative 5. So those are equivalent solutions. I don't care which one you give me on a test or a quiz. So now let's figure out which of these numbers I can check off as solutions. So a is less than negative 5. So is negative 5 a solution? No, it is not a solution. So I can't check negative 5. Now, which numbers are smaller than that? Well, negative 6 is smaller, it's farther away from 0. Negative 7 is even farther away from 0, and so is negative 8. So those three numbers are the solutions. Okay, last one, number 14. The first thing I'm going to do is draw my line through my inequality symbol, and I'm trying to get that r by itself. So what do I need to undo first? Well, I need to undo that plus 4. So how do I undo that? Well, I subtract 4. And I'm subtracting 4 on both sides. On the side with the r, my 4's cancel out, and r divided by 2 comes down. Now on the other side, negative 1 minus 4 is negative 5. Now, does my sign change? When we subtract 4, no, it does not. So it's still greater than or equal to. Now, how is r connected to 2? It's connected to 2 through division, so I undo that by multiplying 2 on both sides. Now I'm multiplying by 2. Does that change my sign? No. So it's still going to be greater than or equal to. On the side with the r, the 2's cancel out. R comes down, it's by itself. On the other side, I've got negative 5 times 2, which is negative 10. So r is greater than or equal to negative 10 is our solution. So now we just need to check what are solutions here. Well, I know because there's a or equal to, negative 10 counts. Greater than, well, all the numbers that are closer to 0. So negative 9, negative 8, and negative 7 are all also solutions. That's the end of part 1 of our notes. There'll be another video for word problems.